I don't care how excited you are. I don't care how good the weather feels when you visit. And I definitely don't care what your real estate agent told you last weekend. I care about your money. Because if you're thinking about buying a house in the wrong place right now, you're about to make a mistake that could lock you into financial pain for the next 10 to 20 years. Not a small mistake, not an oops. I'm talking about a decision that quietly drains your wealth, traps your mobility, and keeps you working longer than you ever planned. And the scary part? Most people won't realize it until it's too late. Here's the truth nobody likes to say out loud. Real estate doesn't fail loudly at first. It fails slowly, quietly. While everyone is still smiling at open houses and telling themselves, real estate always goes up. It doesn't. And I know this because I've watched it happen, again and again. I've seen people buy at what they thought was the safe peak, only to spend the next decade trapped in a house they couldn't sell, couldn't rent profitably, and couldn't escape without taking a loss. Meanwhile, they kept paying property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and interest, convincing themselves that patience would save them. It didn't. The difference between the people who win in real estate and the people who get crushed comes down to one thing: data. Cold, uncomfortable, emotionless data. Not vibes, not opinions, not what you want to be true. And right now, the data is screaming. It's screaming that there are places in this country where buying a home today is not an investment. It's a liability disguised as stability. A financial anchor wrapped in the illusion of safety. Before we go any further, let me make one thing clear. This isn't about politics. It's not about red states versus blue states. It's not about ideology, culture, or personal identity. You can believe whatever you want. The real estate market doesn't care. It only cares about supply and demand. It cares about migration. It cares about jobs. It cares about taxes. It cares about regulation. And it absolutely cares about debt. If you ignore those things because you love the area, the market will punish you without hesitation. Here's the first belief I need to break, and this one makes people uncomfortable. A house is not automatically an investment. A house is a place to live. It's a consumption asset. It consumes your money every single month. Property taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance. Roofs wear out, furnaces fail, foundations crack. None of that builds wealth, it drains it. Can real estate be a powerful investment? Absolutely. Some of the smartest wealth in the world was built through property, but only under the right conditions in the right places at the right time. And right now, in certain parts of this country, those conditions are broken. Most people think they're buying 4 walls and a roof. They're not. When you buy a house, you're buying into an entire ecosystem. You're buying into a tax structure, a regulatory environment, a labor market, a migration pattern, a state's debt burden. And if that ecosystem is decaying, your house will decay financially with it, no matter how nice the kitchen looks. I've spent decades watching cycles play out, booms that felt unstoppable, busts that felt impossible until they happened. The pattern is always the same. First, people stop moving in, then businesses slow their expansion, then taxes creep up, then services decline, then inventory quietly builds, and finally prices crack. By the time headlines admit there's a problem, the damage is already done. Right now, we're in the dangerous phase where everything still looks fine on the surface. Prices haven't collapsed yet. Open houses are still busy in some areas, and that's exactly why people are about to get blindsided. Let me tell you how I analyze real estate markets, because this is the framework that separates emotional buyers from disciplined investors. First, migration. Are people moving in or moving out? This is non-negotiable. If a state has sustained net negative migration, demand for housing will eventually fall. Always. Second, business activity. Are companies opening offices, expanding operations and hiring, or are they leaving? Jobs create housing demand. When jobs leave, housing prices follow them down. Third, taxes. Taxes are a cost. Rising costs reduce affordability. Reduced affordability kills demand. Fourth, regulation. Can builders build? Can landlords operate? Can businesses function without drowning in compliance? If the answer is no, supply and economic growth suffer. And fifth, debt. State and municipal debt matters because it always gets paid the same way, through higher taxes, reduced services, or both, all of which push people away. When I run these 5 factors together, certain states light up like warning beacons, every metric flashing red, every trend pointing in the same dangerous direction. And if you buy real estate in one of those environments, you're not investing. You're speculating that reality will magically reverse itself. Here, what terrifies me most: real estate markets don't decline gently. They don't give you time to adjust emotionally. They crack suddenly after long periods of denial. One year everything feels stable. The next, listings sit longer, then price cuts appear, then panic sets in. If you bought at the top, you don't get to wait it out easily. You're stuck, underwater, unable to move for better work, unable to sell without a loss, watching your net worth shrink while your monthly bills stay exactly the same. This is what I'm trying to save you from. Because right now, this country is splitting into 2 economic realities. Some states are becoming magnets for people, capital, and opportunity. Others are slowly turning into economic traps: high cost, low growth, shrinking demand. And the gap between those 2 realities is widening every single year. In the next part, I'm going to start naming names. I'm going to walk you through the first state on the danger list and show you exactly why the numbers don't work anymore, why the fundamentals are cracking, and why buying there today puts your capital at serious risk. This isn't fear-mongering, this is pattern recognition. So before we continue, I want you to do one thing: put your emotions aside. Forget what you've been told, forget what you hope is true, and prepare to look at the data honestly. Because the market doesn't care about your feelings. And in real estate, ignoring reality is the most expensive mistake you can make. Before you heard this, did you believe a house was always a safe investment? Yes or no? Be honest, drop your answer in the comments. If you care about protecting your money before mistakes become permanent, subscribe now. This channel isn't about hype or feel-good advice. It's about reading the warning signs early, before the market makes the decision for you. In the next part, I'll start naming the states where buying a home right now could quietly destroy your wealth. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Now that you understand the framework, now that you understand how this game actually works, it's time to stop speaking in theory and start talking about reality. Because data without application is useless. And when I apply those 5 filters: migration, business activity, taxes, regulation, and debt, one state stands out immediately. Not because it's the worst on paper, but because it's the most dangerous psychologically. Why? Because people still believe it's safe. State number 1, California. Before you rush to the comments, before you get emotional, listen carefully. This is exactly the kind of reaction that destroys wealth. California is beautiful, it has incredible weather. It has culture, history, innovation. Enormous fortunes were built there. But past success does not guarantee future returns. That's the first rule of investing most people forget. The problem with California today isn't one single issue. It's the combination of everything happening at the same time. Let's start with taxes, because this is where the math begins to break. California has one of the highest state income tax rates in the country. Add property taxes, sales taxes, gas taxes, and a long list of indirect fees, and you're looking at a cost structure that punishes both workers and business owners. High taxes don't automatically destroy a market, but when they rise faster than incomes, affordability collapses. And that's exactly what's happening. Housing prices in many California markets have completely detached from median income. The price-to-income ratio is stretched beyond historical norms. That means fewer people can afford to buy, and when affordability breaks, demand eventually follows. Now look at migration. For years, California has had net negative domestic migration. More people are leaving than arriving. And this is the most important detail. It's not retirees leaving. It's working-age families, professionals, business owners, the tax base. They're not leaving because they hate California. They're leaving because the math no longer works. They're going to places where their income goes further, where taxes are lower, where regulations are lighter, and where opportunity feels expandable instead of suffocating. That alone should make you pause. Next, business movement. Technology companies were once the backbone of California's housing demand. But now, those same companies are opening massive operations elsewhere. They're spreading risk. They're lowering costs. they're following talent. When jobs decentralize, housing demand decentralizes with them. Remote work didn't kill real estate, but it killed geographic captivity. People no longer need to live near the office to earn top income, and once that leash is gone, high-cost locations lose their advantage. Now let's talk about the hidden time bomb, debt. California has massive unfunded obligations, pension liabilities that don't disappear just because the economy slows. Those obligations will be paid one way or another, and history tells us how: higher taxes, reduced services, or both. What happens when taxes rise further? More people leave. What happens when people leave? Demand drops. What happens when demand drops in an overvalued market? Prices crack. This is not speculation. This is how cycles work. And here's what makes California especially dangerous. Inventory is still relatively tight in many areas, which creates the illusion of stability. People look at prices and say, "See, it hasn't crashed." That's exactly what markets look like before they crack. When sellers finally accept reality, when life events force sales, when job losses hit, when tax bills rise, inventory increases quickly. And when supply rises in a weakening demand environment, prices don't drift down, they drop. Now let's move to the second state on the list. State number 2, Illinois. Illinois is not approaching trouble, it's already there. This is a textbook example of what happens when bad policy compounds over decades. Start with property taxes. In many parts of Illinois, property taxes are among the highest in the nation. Not marginally higher, dramatically higher. In some counties, homeowners are paying a percentage of their home's value every single year just to stay in place. That's not wealth building, that's rent disguised as ownership. Now layer on population trends. Illinois has been losing residents for years. Not in one bad year. Consistently, slowly, relentlessly, people leave, demand weakens. Weak demand puts pressure on prices. Rising taxes accelerate the exit. Then look at business behavior. Major employers have left, headquarters have relocated, capital has moved elsewhere. And when large employers exit, they don't just take jobs with them, they take secondary demand, restaurants, retail, services, housing. This is the death spiral most people don't recognize until it's too late. The government raises taxes to plug budget holes. Higher taxes push more people out. A smaller tax base forces more tax increases, and the cycle feeds itself. Illinois doesn't have a massive inflow of new industries to offset this. It doesn't have population growth to bail it out. It doesn't have affordability trends working in its favor. If you buy real estate in that environment, you're betting against the data. And remember, you don't need a crash to lose money. You just need stagnation plus costs. Flat prices with rising taxes and maintenance still destroy net returns. Now let's talk about why this matters beyond just these two states. What California and Illinois share is not politics, it's structural imbalance. High costs, outmigration, heavy obligations, weak affordability. These are not short-term problems. They are long-cycle problems, and long-cycle problems don't reverse quickly. Here's the most dangerous mindset in real estate. It hasn't happened yet. Markets don't warn you loudly, they lull you to sleep. People said the same thing in previous cycles. Prices aren't falling, demand is still there, this time is different. It never is. In the next part, I'm going to continue the list and then pivot to what actually works, where the data points in your favor, not against you. Because avoiding bad investments is only half the game. Knowing where opportunity lies is how wealth is built. But before we move on, ask yourself one uncomfortable question. If population is leaving, businesses are relocating, taxes are rising, and debt is growing, who exactly is going to pay more for your house in 10 years? That question has an answer. And in some states, it's an answer people don't want to face. Now that you've seen the pattern, now that you understand why California and Illinois are flashing red, the remaining states won't surprise you, but they will still make people uncomfortable. Because comfort is expensive in real estate. State number 3, New York. New York is one of the most powerful brands on earth, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. When a place has a legendary reputation, people stop questioning the fundamentals. They assume demand will always be there. They assume wealth will always flow in. They assume history guarantees safety. It doesn't. New York's problem is simple. The cost structure no longer makes sense for a mobile workforce. High state income taxes, high property taxes, aggressive regulations, an openly hostile posture toward high earners and businesses, and now something new that changes everything: geographic freedom. Remote work broke the final chain. For decades, people tolerated New York's costs because opportunity was concentrated there. If you wanted top-tier finance, media, law, or executive roles, you paid the price. That trade-off worked until it didn't. Now high earners can live elsewhere, and they are. When high earners leave, the tax base shrinks. When the tax base shrinks, governments raise rates to compensate. That accelerates the exit, and the cycle feeds itself. Real estate prices don't collapse immediately in environments like this. They erode, slowly at first. Then suddenly, suburban markets weaken, secondary cities weaken. Eventually, even core areas feel pressure. Buying into that environment today means betting that people will voluntarily choose higher taxes and higher costs when they no longer have to. That's not a bet investors win. State number 4, New Jersey. New Jersey suffers from one fatal flaw. It depends on proximity value that no longer holds the same power. For years, New Jersey survived on spillover demand from New York City. People accepted enormous property taxes because they needed access. That access justified the cost. But access is losing value. New Jersey has some of the highest property taxes in the country. Not competitive, not a little higher. Extreme. Homeowners paying tens of thousands per year just to exist in their own homes. That would be tolerable if incomes were rising faster than costs. They aren't. Now add remote work to the equation. If you don't need to commute daily, why pay New Jersey prices? Why absorb New Jersey taxes? Why accept diminishing services and rising obligations? You wouldn't, and people aren't. Businesses know this. They see the trend. They plan exits years in advance. When businesses leave, jobs leave. When jobs leave, housing demand collapses from the inside out. New Jersey real estate isn't just overpriced, it's structurally exposed. State number 5, Connecticut. Connecticut is the quietest warning sign of all. No headlines, no drama, just slow decay. This is what happens when a state spends decades making itself less competitive and assumes wealth will stay out of habit. It doesn't. Connecticut once thrived on finance, insurance, and proximity to New York. That advantage is fatting fast. Firms have moved. Talent has moved. Young people leave as soon as they can. What remains is high taxes, aging infrastructure, and a shrinking population supporting massive obligations. Here's the danger with Connecticut real estate. Prices remain high in many areas due to limited inventory, not strong demand. That's a fragile equilibrium. When owners eventually need to sell, retirement, relocation, financial pressure, the illusion breaks. And when it breaks hard. Now that you've seen all 5 states together, the pattern is undeniable. High costs, outmigration, weak affordability, heavy debt, declining competitiveness. That's not a temporary cycle, that's structural decline. So what do you do instead? Here, where most people finally start asking the right question. Not where do I want to live, but where does the data support long-term demand? This is where opportunity lives. When I analyze markets, I look for the opposite signals. Positive migration, people moving in, not out. Business inflows, companies expanding, not fleeing. Reasonable taxes, sustainable, predictable, competitive. Regulatory balance, not chaos, not paralysis. Fiscal discipline, no massive hidden liabilities waiting to explode. When you apply that lens, certain states consistently appear on the other side of the equation. States attracting capital, attracting jobs, attracting families, attracting talent. Does that mean you should blindly buy there tomorrow? No. Because timing still matters. Hot markets can become overextended. Prices can overshoot fundamentals in the short term. Smart investors don't chase hype, they wait for alignment. But here's the critical difference. If you buy slightly early or slightly expensive in a growing market, time works for you. Demographics bail you out. Economic growth absorbs mistakes. If you buy even cheap in a declining market, time works against you. No discount can overcome bad fundamentals. This is the mistake people make again and again. They confuse low price with value. Price is what you pay. Value is what the market sustains. Now let's address the hardest group, people already owning property in these states. If that's you, this isn't about panic, it's about planning. If you're mobile, if you don't have immovable roots, seriously evaluate your exposure. Your biggest asset is not your house, it's your earning power. And earning power thrives where opportunity grows. If you're closer to retirement, stop assuming appreciation will save you. Build plans that work even if your home value stagnates or declines. Hope is not a retirement strategy. And if you're a landlord, be ruthless with your numbers. The moment cash flow turns negative, the investment thesis is broken. Declining markets punish hesitation. Here's the final truth most people avoid. The real estate market doesn't care how badly you want something to work. It doesn't care about loyalty, nostalgia, or identity. It responds to incentives and math. And right now, the math is clear. Some states are building the future, others are clinging to the past. You get to choose which side you're on. You can ignore the data and hope, or you can accept reality and position yourself where demand is growing, not dying. If this analysis changed how you think, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's about to make a major financial decision, because one bad real estate purchase can erase years of progress. And remember this: in investing and in life, you're not rewarded for being comfortable. You're rewarded for being correct. Make decisions that your future self will thank you for. If you were forced to buy real estate today, which state would you avoid at all costs, and why? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them all. If this breakdown helped you think more clearly about your money, subscribe now. This channel is about financial survival, not hype. We break down the data, expose bad investments, and show you how to protect your wealth before the damage is done. New videos like this are coming. Don't miss the next one.